Welcome to Twists of Life, where every story has an unexpected turn. Stories of joy and sorrow, hope and redemption, just like the life we all live. Make yourself comfortable. It's time to begin. I've had enough. How much longer can I endure this torment? Am I some kind of object to be used so unceremoniously? No, I definitely won't put up with this. Sarah violently threw her surgical cap away, but it fell a couple of steps short. The girl covered her face with her hands and sobbed silently. Her friend Lisa tried to comfort her by patting her shoulder, but Sarah sharply brushed her hand away. Lisa sighed tiredly and went to the table to pour her friend some water. Now don't get worked up, Sal. I'm sure everything will clear up soon. You told the plain truth, didn't you? I think Eleanor Thompson will sort everything out, Lisa said softly. Sarah lowered her hands, stopping her crying. Her voice was loud and sharp. Sort it out? Lisa, please, take off your rose-tinted glasses. Have you ever seen the truth side with a nurse in a situation like this? You know our chief physician? She never admits she's wrong and always stands up for the doctors. And she protects David more than anyone. She's ready to destroy anyone who dares to have something against him. I understand there's something fishy going on here, but that's not my concern. However, when I'm accused so basely and unfairly, and then punished on top of it, I'm ready to tear them all to shreds. Lisa glanced fearfully at the door of the nurse's station, quickly went over, and pulled it shut more tightly. Then, lowering her voice to a loud whisper, she added, Sal, quiet down. If anyone hears, they'll report it to management right away. I don't care. Let them report it. What else can they do to me? They gave me a reprimand, ruined my employment record, took away my bonus, and even cut my salary for several months. And who knows what will happen next? If they decide to sue me, no one will defend me. No, this is simply unbearable. I'd rather write a letter of resignation. And Sarah again hid her face in her hands, making muffled, growling sounds. Lisa took a deep breath and went over to her friend. Sarah had always been emotional, but today she just exploded. Lisa tried to find the words to calm her down somehow. Oh, Sally, please, stop. Don't talk like that. Who has it easy right now? Do you think it's different somewhere else? It's the same everywhere, and the attitude is the same. You'll just trade one problem for another. You've been here for 4 years, you're used to it, you know everyone, and the job generally suits you. If you leave, you'll have to look for a new place, and there's no guarantee you'll find a better one. Come on, drink some water, calm down, dear. I have to run to surgery, or the surgeons will tear me apart. Get a grip. Lisa hugged her friend and quickly left the nurse's station. Sarah was left alone. She clutched the glass of water in her hand. Looking at it, she replayed the recent events in her mind again and again. Sarah came to work at this hospital 4 years ago. None of the surgeons were particularly eager to work with an inexperienced scrub nurse. Sarah was passed from place to place, but the girl quickly managed to win the doctor's trust. At first they were wary of her, but she performed her duties flawlessly, carried herself confidently, and soon became a constant assistant to an elderly surgeon. She was only assigned to surgeries with him. Only occasionally did she substitute for sick colleagues and work with other doctors. She worked with this surgeon for a little over 3 years until misfortune struck. The elderly doctor had a stroke. He was saved, but he could no longer work and resigned due to health reasons. For about 2 months, Sarah worked with whoever was available, and then a new surgeon was hired. It was the young David Miller, and Sarah became his permanent scrub nurse. At first, the young doctor appealed to Sarah, and not just professionally. She even felt a liking for him, but soon learned he was married. This upset her, but not too much. The main thing was that he turned out to be a good specialist with whom she could calmly do her job. However, David Miller turned out to be not such a simple person. He had a difficult character. He could be cheerful, but if necessary, he knew how to put someone in their place. And Sarah quickly realized that he treated the mid-level medical staff with slight disdain. And when she saw how he talked to an orderly, it became clear that the junior staff simply didn't exist for him. Well, that happens, and quite often. Sarah was unlucky, but she quickly learned, if she didn't contradict him, but simply followed all his instructions, she wouldn't have to worry about her fate. There would be no conflicts with the doctor. Around the same time, Sarah began to notice that something unusual was happening between the chief physician, Eleanor Thompson, and David. She quite often called him into her office, and after these visits, David would leave clearly pleased. No one really knew anything about their relationship, because everyone feared the chief physician's difficult temper. She couldn't stand gossip spreading through the hospital. And if she found out what was being said about her, the person who started the rumor would be immediately fired. No one risked messing with the boss. Sarah also kept quiet. She honestly didn't care what was happening between them. The only thing that bothered her was the age difference. David Miller was 15 years younger than Eleanor Thompson. She was nearly 50. He was only 35. But everyone has their own tastes. If there was something between them, it was their personal business. And then it happened. Today, Eleanor Thompson called her into her office and gave her a real dressing down. It turned out that a few days ago they had operated on a man, and during the night the patient became very ill. They started calling David Miller. He lived far away, and they would have had to wait a long time for him. The patient underwent emergency repeat surgery, and 3 gauze sponges were removed from his abdominal cavity. When Sarah heard this, a chill ran through her. She immediately knew which patient they were talking about. It was after his surgery that Sarah had not performed the count of instruments and dressing materials. She was supposed to do it every time, and she wanted to do it. But David Miller gave her an urgent errand. He was in a great hurry that day. "Sally, run quickly to the post. My suit from the dry cleaner should have been delivered there. I warned the nurse on duty. Quickly pick it up and bring it to the doctor's lounge. And while you're at it, make me some coffee. I love how you make it. You have some special proportions. The coffee turns out incredibly delicious. Hurry up." "But David Miller, I haven't checked yet." Sarah tried to object, but he didn't let her finish. "Don't worry, I'll check everything myself. Everything will be fine. The surgery went smoothly, easily, and quickly. I'm sure we did everything perfectly. I'll count everything myself. Now you, go do what I told you." Sarah looked around helplessly. No one had heard their conversation because the surgeon was speaking quite quietly. Well, if he was going to check everything himself, that was even better, and Sarah hurried to carry out her doctor's instruction. Now Eleanor Thompson was demanding an explanation for how the gauze sponges ended up forgotten in the patient's abdominal cavity. If Sarah hadn't performed the count, it was a gross violation. "I truly didn't check the dressing material, but only because David Miller said he would do it himself," Sarah whispered. Eleanor Thompson frowned menacingly. "Are you trying to curry favor now? What are you even talking about? Is a doctor supposed to do your job? What kind of new rules are these?" "But I'm telling the truth. David Miller gave me an errand. I wanted to finish my work, but he sent me to the post. He himself told me not to worry." Eleanor Thompson slammed her fist on the table and stood up abruptly. "How dare you lie so brazenly? You wretch! Did you decide to slander a respected surgeon? Why would you do that? You probably set your sights on him and he didn't reciprocate. Is that it? Are you out of your mind? David Miller has a wife, and he's a decent man. He wouldn't lie to his chosen one." "But I'm telling the truth, Eleanor Thompson," Sarah objected again. "And I'm telling you again that you are shamelessly lying, you rude girl. Do you think I haven't spoken to David Miller? I already called him in this morning, and he told me everything," the chief physician snapped. Sarah sank helplessly into a chair. She looked at her boss in confusion and quietly stammered, "And what did he tell you?" Eleanor Thompson smirked. "As if you don't know. He told the truth, that he asked you to hurry with your work because he had to run to the post for his suit. And you yourself offered to run instead of him, and he should do your job for you and finish the surgery with another nurse. And he strictly told you to finish your duties first. Why did you do that? Why did you tell him you had counted everything? Why did you set him up like that? You lied, didn't finish your work, left, and the doctor trusted you. Well, if you thought your stunt would go unpunished, you are mistaken. Now you'll get the full treatment." "But it wasn't like that. It was David Miller who said he would do everything himself, and he sent me for the suit. I wanted to finish my work, but he didn't let me. Why did he set me up like this?" Eleanor Thompson looked sternly at her subordinate. Then she said, "You know, I understand your motive. I can guess what's going on. You wanted to get revenge on the surgeon because he didn't succumb to your charms, and you decided to lie to him. But you didn't consider one thing. These were your duties, and you didn't perform them. And now you will answer for it. If the hospital is sued, you will be responsible, and you will go to prison, or you will pay compensation to this patient, who almost went to the next world, for the rest of your life. There. Do you understand me? And for now, I will punish you properly. You are deprived of your bonus for 6 months. You will only receive your base salary without allowances. I will make sure there is a note about your dishonesty in your employment record. If you decide to quit after such a note, no one will hire you anywhere else. Now go. I'm disgusted to look at you, you liar." Sarah could no longer say a word in her defense. The chief physician wouldn't believe her anyway. She unconditionally stood by David Miller's side. She defended and covered for him too zealously. Sarah sighed and finished the water in the glass. She had almost calmed down, but she hadn't come to terms with her situation. No, this wouldn't happen. She wouldn't accept this. She was going to do something different. She was going to get revenge on David Miller, and she had to act extremely cautiously so as not to scare off certain participants in this drama. A surgery was scheduled for the evening. Sarah prepared to meet David Miller. Seeing the nurse, he frowned. He apparently expected her to avoid him or throw a tantrum, but Sarah calmly greeted him and then said, "There seems to have been some misunderstanding. I apologize for letting you down. I should have monitored the performance of my duties more carefully. Such mistakes will not happen again in the future." David Miller smirked arrogantly. He understood that Eleanor Thompson had put the nurse in her place, and he himself had managed to avoid trouble. "Yes, well, make sure this doesn't happen again. The patient almost died because of you. Do you think this is a joke? No, my dear, this is very serious. I told you not to leave until you finished, and you let me down. You said you checked everything and ran off. Excellent work. If I had run off like that without finishing the surgery..." Sarah barely managed to restrain herself from lunging at this arrogant surgeon, but she gathered all her willpower and simply remained silent. The surgery went quickly. Now Sarah performed her duties with double diligence. She knew she could be set up at any moment. After her shift, she went home. She didn't eat, didn't drink coffee. She just lay down in the dark on her bed and fell asleep. From the next day, Sarah began to closely watch Eleanor Thompson and David Miller. At every opportunity, she would walk past the chief physician's office, listening to what was happening behind the door. David Miller often visited the chief physician, but Sarah, passing by, heard nothing. She needed to make sure there was really something between them, and then the rest was easy. Just deliver the necessary information to David Miller's wife. Sarah learned that the surgeon's wife was named Catherine, and she was the daughter of a very influential man. If Sarah could prove that David Miller was cheating, he would be in serious trouble. She really hoped so. And at the same time, She hoped that Eleanor Thompson would also have problems. Time passed, but all attempts to find out anything about the chief physician's and the surgeon's relationship remained unsuccessful. Sarah began to lose patience and hope. Would she really not be able to get revenge on the one who wronged her? Was this fair? She tried her best to be polite to him, but it became more difficult every day. The offense and damage caused to her were too great. The patient who suffered due to David Miller's fault was discharged. He did not file a complaint against the hospital. At least Sarah was lucky in that regard. It was unknown how everything would have turned out if the case had gone to court. 2 months passed, and finally, luck smiled on Sarah. She managed to catch Eleanor Thompson and David Miller. It was late in the evening, and only the night shifts remained at the hospital. Sarah should have been home long ago, but she had stayed late. She had a severe stomach ache and lay in the nurse's station for a long time after taking a pill. When she finally felt better, she got ready to leave. As she was heading for the elevator, she remembered that she wanted to take her medical uniform home. She had badly stained her pants. Sighing, she turned back. Turning the corner of the corridor, she saw from a distance that the chief physician's office door was open. Sarah frowned and slowed her pace. She was glad she was wearing sneakers today. She stopped about a meter from the door. What was happening inside wasn't visible, but it was perfectly audible. Holding her breath, she listened. "But why are you making me so jealous?" she heard David Miller's voice. Eleanor Thompson's playful laugh rang out. "My dear, what are you imagining?" And then Sarah realized this was her only chance. Carefully taking out her phone, which was always on silent mode at work, she pressed the voice recorder button to record the conversation. "Why am I imagining things? That young intern was hanging around your office all day today. Are you thinking of trading me for a younger lover? Eleanor Thompson, I'm not from the streets, and you shouldn't play these games with me," David Miller said. "Oh, David Miller, are you trying to assert your rights? Just look at you. You have a wife. Go boss her around. Your Catherine probably puts up with it, but I won't. I'm not your lawful wife for you to order me around. I'll be the one ordering you around, because you're only here thanks to me. All I have to do is snap my fingers, and you'll be out of here," Eleanor Thompson retorted. David laughed. "I like today's games. You'll be my strict mistress today. Well, I'm ready to do everything you say. Just please, let's not talk about my wife anymore. You know Catherine is of no interest to me." Eleanor Thompson giggled. All right, we won't talk about your wife. Go, close the door so no one disturbs us." Sarah felt a chill. If either of them looked out of the office now, she wouldn't go unnoticed. Her whole plan would collapse, and she'd have even more problems. But she was lucky. The door simply slammed shut. The click of the lock was heard. Sarah could finally breathe out. "Oh God, I need to get out of here immediately." She stopped the voice recorder, clutching the phone as if it were a priceless treasure. She carefully turned around and began to slowly walk away. The further she went, the faster her steps became. Only when she was in the elevator did she allow herself to smile looking at her phone. How lucky she was! It was incredible luck to overhear this conversation. Now she could get her revenge. This would be quite enough. "Now you'll get what you deserve," she whispered to herself. A few days later, she managed to find out David Miller's wife's phone number. He often gave her his phone to charge, and Sarah took advantage of this. She wanted to just send the recording to the surgeon's wife, but she didn't know how she would react. For several days, she pondered the best course of action. A week later, Sarah went on vacation, and on the first day, she decided to call David's wife herself. Perhaps the woman wouldn't answer a call from an unknown number, but it was worth a try. Surprisingly, she answered immediately. "Hello. Excuse me, we don't know each other, but I work with your husband. I really need to meet with you. Just please, don't tell him anything. Otherwise, I'll be fired, and I can't lose my job. I beg you, spare me 10 minutes. I won't keep you longer, but I need to tell you something. It's very important. And again, luck smiled on Sarah. Catherine agreed to meet that same day in 2 hours. When Sarah arrived at the small cafe where Catherine was already waiting, she felt a little flustered. The girl was her age, very pretty, but with a sad expression on her face. "Well, what did you want to tell me?" Catherine asked after the greeting. Sarah, stumbling, told David Miller's wife the whole story and played the recording. Catherine listened with headphones, her face impassive. Her eyes didn't even blink. Only her face turned very pale. Taking off the headphones, she looked closely at Sarah. "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" Sarah opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. And then she told the truth. She told how David Miller had set her up, how she had suffered, losing a significant part of her earnings, and that she wanted to teach this despicable surgeon a lesson. Catherine nodded, and then said thoughtfully, "My father told me David was a scoundrel, but I didn't believe him. I believed David. Recently, I started suspecting he was deceiving me. I even had him followed, but he didn't go anywhere except work. I couldn't even imagine he was having affairs right at work. Well, thank you. I think there's nothing more for us to talk about. By the way, I'd like to compensate you for the damage caused because of my husband." Sarah waved her hands. No, absolutely not. I don't need anything." Catherine nodded. She transferred the recording to her phone, returned Sarah's mobile, and stood up. "Well, as you wish. Goodbye." Sarah sat in the cafe for about 10 more minutes. She wondered what her interference in someone else's life would lead to. Had she done the right thing? A week later, when Sarah returned to work from vacation, she learned the latest shocking news. Eleanor Thompson had been fired. She no longer worked at the hospital. Rumor had it that she had moved to another city. David Miller had also resigned, and his wife had left him. She had divorced him. No one knew the true reasons for what had happened. Everyone speculated about what could have happened that 2 prestigious positions suddenly became vacant. She knew that the reason for these changes was herself and her plan for revenge.